Hi, welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us today at this welcome webinar for PLOS Complex Systems. We're really happy to have you all join us here so we can chat through a bit more about the role of academic editors on the journal, how the journal operates, how you're going to be interacting with staff, and answer any questions that you have. The meeting is going to last, like I said, about an hour. So if you have any questions, please do save them for the end. And we're going to be going over how we might be interacting with you, where to find all of the resources to help you in your role, and a bit of an overview about what the role is going to be, because it might be slightly different to the academic editor role that you have previously held in other journals or that you currently hold, because PLOS Complex Systems operates slightly differently. So with that said, we'll introduce ourselves. Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm with the R&R team here on across all PLOS journals, but PLOS Complex Systems. We work to help manage our editorial board. We do recruitment for the editorial boards. You probably have spoken to either me or one of my colleagues in the process of joining. We help organise interventions and training for editorial board members. We try to keep a good finger on the pulse of your experience as an editorial board member. And we do recruitment in different areas to try and help make sure that you've got all the support that you need in all the different research areas across PLOS Complex Systems. So you probably interact with either me or one of my team in your time as a member of the board. I'll pass on to Joe here, just give a brief, well, you already know Joe already.
Hi guys, hopefully you are at least somewhat familiar with me. I've been working with a team at PLOS to help develop the journal PLOS Complex Systems, and have been talking to many of you about how it, sort of shape it should take and the sections and scope of the journal. And so it's my background's in geology, but it's been a year richly steeped in learning about all the different things from, epidemiology to complex networks to fractals to all the other different things. My background's in geology, but it's been a really interesting year learning about kind of all the things that you guys do day to day. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to lend your time to this project. I'm really excited about it. Pretty much everyone I've talked to has been pretty excited about it. So I just really appreciate you guys being part of the buzz. So thank you for coming out.
We do have a quick poll. We just wanted to see about who's joining us today. But actually, because we've got quite a nice small group, it won't take too long to fill out. So hopefully you should have that with you now, if you can see the poll. We just would love to have an idea about how many years you've been a researcher, if you've been on any editorial boards previously, even where are you researching currently, just so we have a really good idea as to what kind of breadth of experience we have here. We'll leave that up just for a few seconds so I can have a chance to answer that. I'll just close that now. You'll see that here. Looks like we've got a really good spread of years as an active researcher. Some people kind of at the beginning of your career, some people with quite a few years of experience, and several people serving on a couple of different editorial boards as well. And one person, I think it's the first editorial board you've been on. So that's fantastic to hear. We're really touched you kind of chosen us as the first one you'd like to join. Hopefully people who've worked on other editorial boards in the past will find our ways not too strange from other boards they've currently served on or previously been on. And wow, yeah, spread quite across the world here. That's great. We wanted to make sure that we had a breadth in experience and breadth in geography, trying to make sure that we're covering as many different areas of the research topic as possible. Internal biases, and we want to make sure that we've got everything covered and we're making sure that every perspective is being seen in our journal. So things like this are really fantastic to see. So I'm going to pass over to Joe now so he can do a little bit of a talk about what Complex Systems is as a journal, how it's going to operate, and kind of what we hope it will be in the future. So I'll pass over to you here, Joe.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought I'd just help provide some context and a little more insight into why it is we're doing what we're doing, at least from the PLOS side. I know you guys are all pretty hungry for a journal that's a place to exchange ideas. Next slide, please, Jenny. So many of you might have seen things to similar effect here, but as it says on the top of the page and it says on the top of the journal page, we are a selective and community-led journal focused on trying to understand the behaviors and drivers of all types of complex systems. And so we have topical sections that I'll go to in a second that'll sort of help highlight the breadth of the work that we're doing. But one of the things that we're really going for, we have an exceptionally strong editorial board, both the people here and the folks who are currently asleep and elsewhere in the world. We have really done, I'm really proud of the work that we've done to establish, both working with the editorial board to grow the editorial board and make sure that we do have a proper global realm connectivity. You know, we've got section editors in pretty much every massive research hub in the world. And the way that we want to go about doing the journal's mission, which is really connecting complex systems researchers to themselves or to each other for the first time. You know, one of the things we discovered in speaking to a lot of folks is there's a lot of people working on projects that are really important to them, but there isn't necessarily a whole kind of united research push in the same way that a topic like cancer does. You know, there's a million people in the world pushing in the same direction with cancer. And so we want to do that in a couple of different ways. The first is simply publishing really good research that gets eyeballs from different topics. So someone who's working in biology can read something that was written by someone working in urban studies and say, oh, that's interesting. I can see how this might be in some way applied to my own work. And that's really what, you know, complex systems is about. It's about truly transdisciplinary work. So the best way to do that is just highlight how the best of that work and how it can appeal to everyone else in the field. And there's a lot that we want to do as a journal in regards to engaging with you, the board, engaging with the wider field, whether that's traveling to conferences that Aiming will be attending, or that's we have an intake form for community engagement stuff that you guys will see coming out in a couple of weeks, and that'll say, you know, hey, are there any webinars that you think your colleagues should like to know about? Are there any webinars for early career people that you think, you know, other faculty members on the editorial board would be interested to know about and can share out? Are there any news sources that you, you know, subscribe to for complex systems news that you think your colleagues should know about, that kind of stuff? And so it's, you know, I'm really excited to hopefully get you guys engaged with that piece of the journal. And that's really, I think, where we can sort of help the field grow and sort of advance itself by creating sort of new collaborations, more familiarity among people really very much placed around the globe doing a lot of interesting and overlapping research. And of course, because we're PLOS, sort of the other final tactic or mission for us is to improve open science practices. And particularly because complex systems uses so many different varied data sets, we have to be careful that we are not discriminating against people who are not sort of able or ready to share data in a way that PLOS would like them to. But we do also want to instate policies that get those people sort of on the right track, because these are such complex issues that use such varied data sets that creating, you know, a sort of explainable or responsible AI and machine learning tools that sort of underpin this research is very, very important to us. So thanks for that. Next slide, please, Jenny. And so finally, a little bit of context as to why we chose to launch the journal now, and hopefully that sort of helps you understand the way we're thinking about it. And as I said, there's no other truly comprehensive complexity journal in the field right now. And speaking to a lot of people, you know, there's journals like PLOS, which calls itself an interdisciplinary journal, but it's mostly a physics title. There are titles that are more focused on the sort of network science aspect of it, but nothing that's truly trying to bring together all pieces of complexity. And, you know, we're also seeing an increasing push around the world for interdisciplinary research, whether that's coming from funders or just scientists themselves, understanding that they'll make better work if they're working with, you know, varied perspectives. And so, you know, the rate of co-authorship we see from the publishers is increasing year on year. And, you know, to what I touched on the last slide is as complexity grows in popularity and familiarity with the community, it's important that it includes open science initiatives so that we can have, you know, trustworthy data that we're working with. And finally, you know, to the point of sort of chaos in interdisciplinary journal by physics journal, in contrast, PLOS has a very strong brand in particularly the life and somewhat the medical science, particularly the life sciences. So I also manage computational biology. So I see a lot of submissions in systems biology and that kind of realm. And so I think it's a real opportunity for us as PLOS to use that brand, which is very life science focused, and has real recognizability and strength there, to sort of launch this journal so that it doesn't just become another sort of chaos type journal or more of a focus skewed towards one direction. So yeah, we're really excited about this project for kind of those reasons. Next slide. I think that's me. Beyond the sections. And so just wanted to leave these up for a second. These are all available on the website, but just so you guys can see the sort of breadth of topics that we're covering in the journal. So urban and behavioral social complexity, urban and industrial complexity, it's like economics, design, that kind of stuff, complex systems in nature, climate, natural hazards, human health, computational complexity, which is model building, people are more focused on building the models, and concepts and complexity, which is overpinning, physics, applied math concepts, stochasticity, self-organizing behavior, synchronization, that kind of stuff. So yeah, again, I'll say it again. I really appreciate you guys joining this project and being part of this. And yeah, I make myself as available as I can be. And yeah, thank you for showing up. That's my little spiel. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Okay, that was a really good overview of the board there. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the structure of the editorial board, how you'll be receiving invites and what that all looks like kind of from the logistics side of it here. So what I'm going to do is try and exit this for a moment and just bring you to our editorial board. So PLOS Complex Systems editorial board can be found here online on the PLOS Complex Systems website. And it's got a really fantastic tool here where you can look for anyone who is, specifically if you know their name, but you can also look by research area, you can look by their kind of topic area. So it's a really great way here for you to be able to find other people who are researching in similar areas to yourself, or if you're looking for a specific aid in a certain topic. This is live updated, so you should all be on there, and anyone who joins the board will be on there. And it's a really great tool here for you to be able to get to know your other board members you're working alongside. This will be a list of all the editorial board members we have on PLOS Complex Systems. So we have several different roles within the editorial board. Section editors are kind of subject matter experts. They will be advising editorial board members on paper handling. They will also be the ones who assign you papers. So papers will be divvied to them as a subject matter expert, and then they will be reaching out to you to ask you to act as an academic editor on these papers in these research areas. And we also have guest editors in areas where our editorial board unfortunately doesn't have enough academic editors at this point, or enough available academic editors. Sometimes section editors can suggest or recommend researchers who could act as one-off academic editors in essence on papers to help provide that support that's needed to help move the paper through the process. But these are the three main roles that you'll see on PLOS Complex Systems. All of them can be found online in the website as I just shown. And really we do encourage you to have a look on there and see who else is working alongside you. A brief overview of your role as an academic editor. So it's your job to oversee the peer review process right from the beginning when it's handed to you by a section editor, inviting you to handle a paper. You're responsible for conducting that initial assessment using PLOS's publication criteria. You then need to find and secure external reviews for the paper, assess the feedback that those reviewers give you. Sometimes this feedback can be contradictory, or one can be more beneficial than the other. So it's really on you as a subject matter expert to be able to take that information and condense it and get usable or actionable points out of that. You will then make an editorial decision for the paper. So you can recommend that it should either be rejected, it could go back for further review, either major or minor, or that it can be published at this time. You'll communicate these decisions with your section editor. And then the paper, depending on what your recommendation, it will move through to its next stages. So you are really playing an active role in the community. You're the person who handles the paper more than anybody. And we do have a lot of autonomy in the decisions that you're making and the people that you invite to handle these papers. You really are the expert in this case that's kind of sourcing these opinions and making a final decision on the paper. Of course, with lots of support from internal staff and from your section editors, if and when you need it. So this is our code of conduct for editorial board members. You can find this again online. It's on our website. It will have been given to you with all of your recruitment information as well. It's just a general overview of what we expect from you as an editorial board member. We take research integrity and research ethics really seriously. We want to make sure that everything is not only above board, but appears above board to our researchers and people who interact with us. And a lot of these things are things that you will have heard in many other forms and many other places. It's just laid out here for you to be able to refer back to about what we expect for peer review, finding peer reviewers, you providing your editorial decision. And it's just something that we would ask all editorial board members to adhere to. So as I said, it can be found on our website if you want to check it. And if at any point in any communication with staff, we mention the code of conduct, this is where it can be found, and this is what it briefly kind of tackles, but nothing too controversial there or something you haven't heard before in the past. So the main way you're going to interact with manuscripts is through our online system Editorial Manager. And there's a fantastic quick guide that we have here about navigating Editorial Manager, walking you through how to set up your profile, how to accept invites, everything. What's most important for us is making sure that you have all the most up-to-date contact information on there, most up-to-date areas of expertise, and that we have correct availability dates for you. This is because there are several ways that a paper could be assigned to you, and having the most up-to-date information on your profile really helps those section editors to know, if this is a paper that's in the right area to assign to you or to ask you to handle. If you are currently working for the same institute that you have listed or in the same field that you have listed. And for availability dates, we don't want to be bothering you when you are conducting other research or when you are not available. We don't want to be inconveniencing you in any way. So if you know that there is something coming up, which means that you are not going to be contactable for a long period of time, some kind of research or a prolonged leave sabbatical or something, you can fill in your unavailability dates on our system just to make sure that we have everything up to date there. So this academic editor guide has been drawn up for all of our journals. You can see here it lists all the different journals under PLOS that this information applies to, and PLOS Complex Systems is right here. It's a fantastic document. It's got everything listed within it with really helpful guides about how to navigate EM, how to log yourself in for the first time, how to select the correct role for your work alongside us, how to fill out your areas of expertise. There are a couple of different fields within EM. So we have both personal classifications and keywords. Personal classifications use our set taxonomy. So you'll be directed to a list of research topics, and you can click and select the ones that you feel apply to you yourself. But the personal keywords are free text, so you can add in there more specific information, something that might not be covered by our internal taxonomy, or something that you feel someone who might be looking to assess or assign a paper to you would benefit from knowing if they want to know about your research area. This is what that will look like, so you can go through and select all the areas that apply to you. And yes, the keywords is absolutely free text, so you can add anything in there. You can also link your ORCID account for ease of being able to access your publications. And there is a section which has personal information. So you can add a kind of research summary in there or more information about the specific topics and areas that you study. This guide is, like I said, it has kind of everything that you need within it. Please, it will be shared after the presentation, but please do make as much use of it as you need. So getting started in Editorial Manager here, and this is what your main home screen is going to look like. Once you log into your account, you'll have an overview here showing submissions that are waiting for your action or that that you need to have a look at. There's a to-do list here which gives you information about any invitations that have come your way, any discussions as well. So this is the way that not only section editors but also staff might be getting in contact with you. So it's really important to be keeping an eye here to see if you've got any updates for discussions. We'll be showing you where those are located and how to find those in a moment. And also updates on any papers that are in progress or papers that you have made a decision on. You can track your progress here about past papers that maybe you have asked to go back for revision and have come back for second decisions, or papers that you have seen through to publication, but you can look back and review the work that was done on them. So it's a really comprehensive menu here of all the different areas that you might be being asked to handle a paper, be currently handling a paper, or who previously handled the paper. This is what the paper is going to look like when you are invited to handle it within Editorial Manager. This section on the left here is what we call an action menu, or the action links, and the discussions I mentioned before are linked over here. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what all these different action links are, how they relate to you, and what information you can find there. So really, obviously, view submission will be the full PDF that has been submitted to the journal, and it'll have all of the attached information that's provided by the authors, and all the information that they provided when they submitted the paper as well. So a breakdown of their cover letter, for example, and all the introductions and everything, all the including information for the paper. Details gives a top view, like overview of authors, keywords, abstracts, who's already had a look at the paper. If anybody does anything when they're having the paper, they will likely leave a note in the details section here. So it's a good way of being able to track the progress of the paper. It's basically an overview of everything that's happened to the paper. initiate discussion or discussion. So if there hasn't been a discussion started, this will say initiate discussion. If there has already been a discussion started, it will just say discussions. If you click through here, then you'll also be able to see the different discussions that are running on the paper. As I mentioned, that other board members or staff might be contacting you or will largely contact you through this route. So it's a really good practice to get into, to be checking on these discussions to see if anyone has replied to comments that you've made or is asking you for a comment on a paper that you've been handling. The history is a really detailed list of all the correspondence of the paper, so you can look back and look at every email that's been sent, any action that's been taken on the paper, so you can track down kind of where it's been and who's handled this at any time. Any supplemental files that have come along with the paper will be found in the file inventory. Classifications, these are attached to the paper, so they are the classification areas of the paper. You don't need to be interacting with this as it will be specific to the paper, not specific to yourself, so you don't need to worry about that. Invite reviewers is here, but it will also look at if a review has already been provided, it will say view reviews and comments, and that's when you can see any previous reviews that someone has submitted, who submitted the review, when they submitted it. So it's a really detailed breakdown again of the history of the review of paper. And reviews and comments will come above here, then invite reviewers, and then submit editor's decision and comments. So this will be when you have reviewed that information for the external reviewers. When you want to make a final decision on paper, you will then click through here to send your editorial decision. And sending an email here is to communicate with authors in the journal or internal staff. Anything that you do send through the email here will be logged in the history as well. So any communication in this route is still logged, so you can see it and review it further down the line. So these are the main links that you'll see when you're interacting with the paper. The more information alongside here of what kind of paper is this, when was it submitted, does it have reviews already attached to it, etc. It's all broken down along the manuscript, so you've got a really detailed top line look at what stage the paper is at as you're being asked to handle it. Yes, so you may also see manuscript flags. These are usually used internally, so there's nothing specifically you need to be worried about. But if you do see different symbols alongside a paper, don't worry, they will be appearing here next to the action links. They're for internal staff tracking, so you don't need to be adding or taking anything away or paying attention to those. But just don't panic if you do see those symbols. So the editorial process overview, I just wanted to have a look here so you can see what has been done for the paper before it gets to you. So the paper will be assigned to a section editor who will provide that initial assessment, so someone who is an expert in the research field of that paper, and they will do an initial check of the paper. So they might actually decide to reject the paper before it even gets to you if they feel that it has failed internal checks. So if they feel the quality of English is incredibly poor, or the research structure it does not bear being sent to peer review, they can desk reject at this point before the paper gets to you. If they do think that no, this is solid and worth external reviewing, they will then invite you as an academic editor to handle the paper. These blue sections here are the flowchart. So you will be assigned to a paper. You will then conduct an initial assessment. So again, at this stage, you can read through the paper and you could decide that you don't think the paper warrants going to external peer review. You think you can make a decision as a subject matter expert that this paper needs to be rejected or go back for further review. If you do think it warrants peer review, you then will send it out for the peer review process. So it's your responsibility to then find external peer reviewers, to invite them to handle the paper, to vet the comments that they provide. So as I said earlier, the comments sometimes might be contradictory. They might be more detailed and one not contain as much information. It's kind of your job as a subject matter expert then to weigh those comments and see which needs to be given precedence and which comments need to be passed on to the authors, or if there's anything that you disagree with or don't think needs to be included. You would then submit your decision to the authors, a recommendation as to what they need to do with the paper next, and the section editor will review this decision and then send that on to the authors. So you might get communication with the section editor at this point as well, just to verify your decision or to ask a question at this point. But the majority of this process is overseen by yourself. So the invitations to handle these manuscripts will be coming through email. So they will be sent by section editors to the email address that we have for you in Editorial Manager. So another reason it's really important you keep that contact information up to date, because that will be how we're contacting you to handle papers. You always have the chance to accept or decline these invitations. You can, if you think it's not in your research area or you don't have capacity at that time, let us know. But if you are on topic and you do have capacity, we do encourage you to agree to handle the paper, because as I mentioned previously, it can be that it doesn't warrant further peer review, but only you as a subject matter expert could tell that. So we really encourage you to accept how the paper, review it, and then provide that decision if you feel it's necessary. The academic editor guide also has a section here about handling the manuscripts. So this is what it's going to look like. You'll have invites come from PLOS or PLOS Editorial Manager, when you can accept or decline the invitation. The links within the email will then send you back to your profile editorial manager where the paper has been sent to you. This is a typical peer review timeline. So initially evaluate the paper for a few days, spend a few weeks then looking to find an external reviewer. The external reviewer then has a few weeks to provide that external review. And then you, once those reviews have been sent back to you, have a few days to assess and see what your editorial decision would be. So this is a suggested timeline. We do understand that you have other responsibilities and other work outside of this, but this is what we would hope you try and keep to roughly. As I said, if you have time to handle the submission and it's in your area of expertise, we do encourage you to accept the handle the paper, even if it's not suitable for peer review, because you can provide that decision straight away. But if you are too busy, if it's outside of your area, or you think you have a competing interest, then do feel free and happy. You have the autonomy to be able to reject the invite at that point. This is the rough peer review timeline, as I mentioned. Things to keep in mind when you're reviewing the paper: is it a fit for the journal? Does it fit with our scope and publication criteria? These might be slightly different to other journals that you've worked with in the past. Our publication criteria has a couple of other sections that maybe other journals don't. So things about novelty, areas of scientific rigor. So we do encourage you to review our publication criteria ahead of your first manuscript acceptance, just so you're aware of what we do and do not consider a failure of that publication criteria. Finding suitable reviewers. We want to be able to provide a qualified and unbiased assessment for the paper. So we want to make sure that they have got several papers on the area of research. They have experience in this field, maybe even the methodology, and they're at a senior enough level that you think you can handle the external review, and that they are affiliated with a reasonable institute, so that they have that academic experience behind them, so that we can trust that they do know what they're talking about. Some things to check when we mention competing interests: they're not working at the same institute as the authors, they're not listed as an opposed reviewer on the submission, they haven't collaborated with the author in the last few years, and they're not located at the same institute as another reviewer. When it comes to competing interests, again, our criteria might be slightly different to other journals you may have worked at previously or heard about previously. Our kind of view of this is not only should it be above board, but it should also, if someone from outside the journal were looking externally, would they be worried if there was a competing interest here? So we don't want to make sure that there is no concern from someone looking externally that something could have influenced an editorial decision. But as I said, all of this information is in the academic editor guide. It breaks it down really comprehensively as to what to be looking for when you're looking for external reviewers, and whether do you want to send out for reviews or not. All of these reviews are sent out in Editorial Manager. So there is, again, a great section in the guide here about how to send out for review. Yes, there we go. So we have a breakdown here about how you can find reviewers within Editorial Manager, if they're within our database, how you can assess them to see if they have the right personal classifications or keywords. You can fill out their research area when you find them externally. You might also have reviewers suggested by an author. So if you see these within the details page of the manuscript, you can then also check externally to make sure they don't have any competing interests or anything of concern. And then you can add them to be able to be invited. There's also a link to Web of Science review locator, so you can do much more comprehensive external research. All of this is within the invite reviewers section of this guide, or within EM. So it will walk you through step by step how you're going to invite people in this case. I guess, and this is how it will appear to you. So this is how you want to invite someone: search by their email, if something's suggested by an author, and this is the Web of Science locator here, so it can suggest potential reviewers who they think is going to be in the research area of the paper. You'll still need to externally vet them to make sure that you think that they are capable of handling the paper alongside that publication criteria I mentioned previously. But it is a useful suggested list here if you want to be able to use it. So you'll receive these reviews in quite a structured form. There's a form that reviewers will fill out to provide their kind of breakdown of what they think is an accurate view of the paper. There are 5 available decisions, and there is guidance about what to do and which specific decision a reviewer has provided. And as I mentioned before, the reviews might vary. There might be one reviewer who's provided a much more comprehensive breakdown and has filled out kind of every section very thoroughly. Another reviewer might not have filled out as much information. So it is, on you to be able to then check between those 2 reviews and make a final decision. When you're providing a decision to an author, we want to make sure that a decision letter has a really good context of the reviewer's comments and the reasoning behind your decision, because the authors will be able to see the original reviewer's comments. So if there is something that you think the reviewer has provided that you don't fully agree with, or that you think needs to be fleshed out further, you can address that in your decision letter to the authors to explain why you haven't either taken this into account or you think that it's not of concern. We really want to be able to provide as much information to the author as possible so they can understand why an editorial decision has been made and why you have interpreted reviewers' comments in a certain way. So there's lots of resources for you here as well. The guidelines for editors webpage here, which is on PLOS's main webpage. It gives you a really good breakdown of all the different resources that we have for you, how to work through Editorial Manager, the Academic Editor Guide I've been going back and forth to, and then all these graphics about the overview of the process. So there's much more information here about the specifics of the academic editor role and the section editor role. But there's also, of course, the main journal staff that you can contact. So you have got the Complex Systems main editorial inbox if you have any questions, and we really encourage you to, if you come across anything, to ask questions, to get in contact. We really want to provide that extra support here, especially at the launch of the journal, as you'll be coming across things that we haven't foreseen yet. And there's also the General Editorial Board Services contact. So if there's anything that you specifically have questions about the role as an academic editor, you can get in contact with the main contact email box here, and we're happy to answer any questions about the intricacies of the role, or what your responsibilities are, or specifics about manuscript handling.
And I'll also flag that I'm always available if you guys have any questions as well about like what's happening at the journal, or need advice on anything.
We really want to emphasize that the whole journal is here to support you. If you have any questions, these are the main contacts, but like Joe said, reach out to him personally. We want to make sure that you know what the information is that you need. If you're struggling in any way, that we can provide what support we can to make sure that this is as good an editorial board experience as possible, especially at this initial kind of launch. We're going to have lots of different issues that we come across, and we want to try and work through them together. So really do try and keep in contact with us and let us know how it's going and if you run across any problems. That said, we do have the Q&A section. Ran through that section a little more quickly than I expected. So if anyone does have any questions, this is now time. Right.
Oh, got one in the chat.
Yes, there's one here about how the submissions will differ. Oh, you're already an editor on +1. Hi. How the handling of submissions will differ in complex systems from +1. Joe, do you want to handle this?
From the academic editor, it's fairly similar. I believe on one, you're also invited in the same way that you can accept or decline the invitation now. So I think it is actually quite similar. Part of the reason we call them academic editor roles, so a little internal site into PLOS, we've tried to, in the last 18 months, we've actually tried to standardize these roles across all the journals. So they should be pretty comparable from one to what we call the community journals, which is this one. So if you're on +1, you should be pretty familiar with this already.
The only difference I can think of top of my head is the section editor role. So on complex systems, you'll be receiving the invite from the section editor, whereas from one, section editors don't behave in that way. But like Joe said, the invite will be the same, the action links will be the same, the responsibilities of what you're being asked to assess for the paper and how you handle that paper are all the same. It's just that the section editor will be sending the invite on complex systems, and they will also be reviewing the decision before it gets sent to the editors on complex systems. I think that's the only procedural or top line difference. So all the responsibilities otherwise, all the autonomy, everything else is the same.
And I'll add that sort of in the context of PLOS complex systems, one of the things we're kind of going for is because we really do have an excellent editorial board, and because we're a newer launch, one thing is that if you ever signed a paper that you think just isn't, if you get invited to do a paper and you don't think it's up to snuff after having a quick scan of it, please accept the manuscript and then pass those comments back to the section editor and just say, hey, like I've accepted the paper, but I think this is a reject decision. Because sometimes we'll see where people will see the paper and say, oh, I don't think this is a good enough paper. I'll just reject the invitation, which doesn't tell the section editor as much as, oh, I as the subject expert don't think this paper is up to snuff, instead of just letting that decision lapse. And the other thing is, because we're quite well staffed currently, we're really trying to go for good turnaround times, like quick turnaround times and good feedback. Because the hope is that, currently as a new journal, there aren't any editors who are completely overwhelmed with assignments from the journal, that they hopefully are able to provide that kind of service. And that's just one of our hopes is, if we're able to sort of get word of mouth out around this is the service we provide, then we'll be on a good path to growing our journal sort of organically as well.
Anyone else have any other questions? I said all the resources that I've mentioned here, so these slides, the academic editor guide, all the links will be shared afterwards as well. So all the resources will be available for you, and most of them are all available online as well. So if you do lose this email or misplace it, you can find them all on our websites. I did run through that information a little bit quicker than expected. So if I've glossed over something, I do apologize. Yeah.
If we have a minute, do you mind if I share my screen, Jenny, real quick?
Of course, yeah, 1 moment. I'll just stop sharing 1 minute. Or yours.
Perfect. So one thing that I just ignore the mess that is my tabs and such. But there's one thing I'd really like to show you guys that some of you might be familiar with. But this is a thing that I've found in talking to authors, many people find quite useful, is this tool called Dimensions. It's free, which is really good. Some people I know use it for a lot of really advanced stuff, but I'll do a quick walkthrough on how it's really good for finding reviewers. So it's just, I think if you guys, anyone who's working on other journals right now can probably echo that finding reviewers is an increasingly difficult subject. So I just want to show you guys how you might be able to find someone quickly in Dimensions and use your own work for this. It's a bibliometrics tool where you can just cut sort of filters across the whole way to get to specific look whatever you want. There's grants in it, which is pretty interesting. So from a publishing perspective, I can look at grants that have been funded in the last, 10 months or something, and then say, oh, cool, I should see, if it turns out that, non-Newtonian fluids have been funded super well, I should probably go chase up with some researchers doing that kind of stuff. But anyway, so say, for example, I'll just do an example of digital health because I'm more comfortable working in digital health. So I'm looking for a reviewer, and in one of our companion journals, let's say the Lancet Digital Health, because I have a paper on telehealth and mHealth that I simply cannot find a reviewer for. So I'm looking in the Lancet. I want papers that are only relevant to the last few years. So I want people who are working in the field right now. So I'll just filter the dates to be 2023 to 2021. And then I can put in my keywords and I can do it as a Boolean search. So I want telehealth and or I can make whatever my search wanted to be. And it will tell me all the papers that have been published in the Lancet Digital Health in the last 3 years that have those keywords. You can be more specific. You can search in full data. If I wanted to be more targeted, I could do title and abstract only. None of them have been interesting. So we do 4. Or 4, okay, cool. And so now, cool. So I've got a paper that's very specifically about telehealth. And now I can look at all of these links, link out to the profiles of the authors. So let's look at Dr. Schaffer. There we go. So it still has all the filters at the top, but I can remove these and it'll show me just Dr. Schaffer's publications. Here we go. So yeah, has written a lot on e-health and telehealth informations. There are 3 papers on them. And so I could say, oh, cool, maybe Dr. Schaffer is a good person to invite for this paper. And I could look them up in Google Scholar or their, faculty page or that kind of thing. So this is just a really powerful tool. I know a lot of researchers who I work with, some of my editors-in-chief, in fact, use this for their own research and use this for finding collaborators. And so I just thought that I would share that with you guys, just so that you're aware it exists. I'm happy to circulate the link at the end, but it's a very, very powerful tool. So cool.
That's great. Yeah. Well, something that does come back from a lot of our editors is that finding and securing reviewers is one of the areas which is most tricky, takes the longest time. So tools that other editors have used and have found helpful are always good. I think one of the reasons we have the Web of Science locator now on linked with an EM is to provide those suggestions, because we realized it was an area that people were really struggling on, or was a pain point in the whole process.
For sure. And, as always, we'll always say, we encourage you to use your network as well. As the editors, we sort of trust you guys to be the subject experts. There's no way that I could ever know as much as you guys do in this. And so we are deferential to your opinions on who and how you think people should be involved.
Definitely leverage the people that you already know or you've heard of, and any expertise they have.
Any other questions then?
As we mentioned, those email inboxes, so if something does occur to you after the presentation, if it occurs to you, tomorrow down the line, please do reach out to us. We're happy to just answer individual questions or areas that you, after listening and thinking a little bit longer, you didn't fully understand. We're really happy to answer anything specific in that area. If there isn't anything specifically we can address now, I'm happy to give some time back to your days so you can continue the work that you're doing. Yeah, please do, like I said, keep in contact with us. We also do have social media pages, so please feel free to reach out there as well if you've interacted with us as well, or if there's, our social media team keeps a really good track of the papers that we're publishing and interactions that we have. So if you see anything on there, please do interact with them as well. Yeah, any closing remarks from you, Joe?
Yeah, just again, thanks. I'd love to see, as you guys go about your business, we'd love to see your work in the journal. Reviews and opinions there's no APC attached to those. So if you have anything that you want to write about in that regard, we'd love to see that. And yeah, as Jenny said, we have quite the press apparatus. So if you're ever writing anything that you think, ooh, I think this one's a real head scratcher, do let me know. If you ever submit it, do let me know, and we can talk to the press team and try and get a little more traction on that one. We've got quite the machine there for you. Also, good applause, Julia. Me too. I agree with you.
And also, you guys are ambassadors for us as well. So anything that you'd like to talk about, the interactions that you have with us, things that we're doing well, let us know things that we're not doing well. And we really want to make sure that you're having a great experience here, that you'd like to encourage other people to join us, but also that you really do feel that we're doing good work in this area. So please do view yourself as an ambassador on our behalf in any of these conferences or areas that you're speaking with your colleagues, or that you're interacting with other researchers in. With that in mind, I will stop the share now. And yes, we might finish a little bit early then, if everyone would like to take some time back of their day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
We did it, Jenny.
Let me just stop the recording.